Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So the other day I have done a couple of videos where we talked about firstly what could happen in the United Kingdom if we're to enter conflict, and then the second video we talked about what we can do or how we can protect our family if the conflict were to happen. And of course guys, when we talked about the conflict, we are referring to the grey zone conflict, which is pretty much like attacks on our infrastructure to destabilize the country and panic the people. So I had then a few messages, and some of you said that actually would be a good idea to bring up the video forward and to look in a little bit more details than we covered last time to which kind of items would be affected if, say, one of the ports get attacked, or generally if we have no imports whatsoever. If you're aware, obviously we are in Ireland and we rely on pretty much majority of things to be imported from across the world. At the same time, also I had a couple of messages, people saying, as a preppers, we normally talk about the food and water being as a main prepping point, which is absolutely the case. Food and water is really important, but we don't often cover or don't cover enough of all the other things that people should be preparing for. So it was a good idea for the video, guys. So in this instance, okay, we're going to be looking at what's going to be happen if there's a sudden attack on ports, or if there's a cyber attack on a port. Basically, the point is, if we are unable to import anything into this country, which things are going to be really hard to find and literally get emptied from the shops really, really quickly. So just to give you an idea, we import more than 50% of our food, most of our fuel, and 80% of all of the medication. So anyway, okay, I have printed out a little list, all right? And we're going to be looking at things that are imported and from which country. This is only done purely for the exercise, okay? This is a theoretical option for you to see and understand how reliant are we on the imports, and if that were to happen, what sort of problems will be arising and what things potentially you can prep that you might have not thought about before. So of course, we're going to start with the food, which is one of the most important things. As I said, guys, we're relying on imports a lot, okay? And for this instance, we're not talking about fresh fruits and vegetables. We know we import this a lot from EU. This is absolutely fine. We're talking about the other hardcore prepping items, or food items, in fact, that are imported, okay, from different countries. So guys, I'm going to kick off with the number one, which is water. That should be your number one priority when you're starting your preparedness journey. It is very important also to know how to harvest and purify your water, but at the same time, I do always encourage people to stock up on some bottled water as well. Normally, if you look in the supermarket in the bottled water, and they always tell you it's bottled at source in UK or bottled in Wales. And we automatically then assume then, well, at least we're going to be safe for water when it comes to an emergency. Well, again, that couldn't be further from the truth. First of all, you'll know in any situation or any bit of panic out there, first thing that goes is the toilet roll and of course the bottled water. Secondly, when we're talking about the closure of ports, that sort of thing, unfortunately the companies that do bottle the water at source import their plastic bottles and lids. That's meaning that if there's no ability to import the plastic bottles, there'll be no bottled water available in the supermarket. So next thing we've been on is rice, and rice is imported from India and Thailand. We're talking about then the pasta and flour. We imported this from Italy, from France, and from Ukraine. Tinned tomatoes, beans and pulses imported from Italy, USA and Canada. Cooking oil, we know sunflower oil comes with Russia and Ukraine, and olive oil comes from places like Italy, Spain and Portugal. So we're talking about now tea and coffee, so imported from Kenya, Colombia and Brazil. Yes, there are certain companies in UK that do make some tea, but the supplies and resources will be very, very limited. Moving on to the baby food and baby formula. Majority imported from Netherlands and Germany, sometimes from other EU countries. Sugar, chocolate and spices, so we've got Africa, India and Vietnam. So as you can see, okay, this is probably one of the main preparedness items when we're talking about the long-term preparedness, okay, the things that we normally like to stock up in the preppers pantry. So automatically rices and pastas and flour alongside of the cooking oil and tinned tomatoes and some other tins are really the key points of the preparedness. And of course, if there's an ability to get any of those in, then you can imagine what's going to be happening. Now we're moving on to the medical and hygiene. Believe this or not, but the UK imports pretty much all of the active ingredients in our medicines. Even if we have companies here that do make some medicine in the United Kingdom. All of the stuff that we need to make those medicines are unfortunately imported from different countries. So again, it comes a little bit to surprise, I would say, to me. When we talk about paracetamol, ibuprofen, it is imported from India and China. And again, when we talk about the paracetamol, or generally painkillers that are over the counter, as a preppers, we always stock up on them, or always encourage people to stock up on them, because they are still very, very cheap and very affordable to be able to sort of stockpile a bit for a rainy day. And again, that just points out the fact that if something were to happen, there's no imports available, something basic that we so rely on without probably even understanding, you won't be able to get in the shops. So things like prescription medicines, again, all right, it's the same. It's the same as about the paracetamol. If we can't get certain parts or certain active ingredients, they're not able to make this. And it's already been happening behind the lines. I'm sure many of us have seen the news articles where saying there was a shortages of the asthma medicines, shortages of those kind of medicines due to these supply chain issues. So again, you have to bear this in mind. And I totally understand, when we mentioned this last time, talking about stockpiling certain medicines, it is not always possible, okay? But please do bear with us and subscribe to the channel so you can watch the 1 week 1 prep, where we're going to be looking into more of the details for certain things and potentially finding the ways where we can stock up a little bit of medicine from your doctor for an emergency. So moving on, right, to the sanitary pads, nappies and soap. Again, most of it is imported from EU and China. And again, we don't talk about a lot of those things on our daily preparedness. You know, when I do my shopping hauls, I don't, put a bunch of personal hygiene to kind of remind people, because I think it goes without saying, if you're of a prepping mindset or you just started prepping, I don't automatically think that people are kind of understanding that, well, look, if you rely on this on your daily basis or monthly basis, there's something you should be, stockpiling just in case. But obviously, I understand not everybody thinks that way. So things like your personal hygiene, again, all of those items are reliant on imports. So if God forbid something happens, then obviously the shelves will be empty. And then we're talking about the toiletries, so toothbrushes, some shampoos and toothpaste. Again, pretty much 99% of it's imported. Yes, there are brands that are producing this in the UK or even in Wales, but again, the active ingredients and plastic bottles and containers are all or majority imported from abroad. So if they're not able to get any of that, then of course they won't be producing it. The next thing we talk about the fuel and energy, and again, it goes without saying, because a fuel, any kind of fuel, it's one of the first things to be brought up when people are panicking. We've seen this with the oil, we've seen this with the diesel, the petrol. When there's a certain conflict, people rush in and there's a queues. Again, we've been through all of this before, so it's clear to understand that this is what will be happening if there's a whiff off, there is an issue going on. People will be literally rushing in first thing, queuing up, filling up their cars, vans, that sort of thing, and obviously the pumps will be empty. At the same time, it also goes with that your heating oil, the wood burners, the coal, depending what are you using, because if you're reliant on this all the time, the same as other people, if that makes sense. So if I'm on oil, and we have this issue during the between 2020 kind of onwards, there was issues with the deliveries and there was a shortage of heating oil. We're reliant on the oil solely for our water and for our heating as well. So we did go through the period of time where first of all, it became really expensive, pretty much unaffordable. And then there were times when they were rationing the amount because there wasn't enough available. So it gives you kind of a rough idea of understanding. So if you do rely on your heating, say for the coal or the wood, then make sure you do kind of have some backups, because again, if things like that happen, the shelves will be cleared pretty quickly. So things, again, we're moving on to say power banks and batteries, okay, made in South Korea, China. Again, fully aware of that, right? And as a prepper, chances are you already have some batteries and flashlights, that sort of thing. Even the government told us already to, prepare some batteries and some torches just in case. And again, to you might think, well, it's not really a big deal because, well, all of them are available right now. But we've already seen many articles when certain things happen, and certain articles were there to encourage people to stockpile some foods, some batteries, the torches. Certain shops have seen an increase of people buying up specific things. So you could imagine when now, batteries, torches, there's plenty of them in the supermarkets or in everywhere online as well. But again, if there's one issue when the stuff can't come in, even be it spare parts to make the same batteries and torches and radios, then the shelves will be empty pretty quickly. And guess what? There'll be no replacements coming in. So moving on to household essentials, and again makes me laugh a little bit because pretty much everything is imported. We are as a country sold out pretty much every industry out to a different country. We're so reliant on everybody else, it's actually scary. And this is all the point, guys, I'm kind of making those videos for you to understand that there's nobody there to help us. We are as a country pretty much by ourselves. And if something happens, okay, if something happens, all of those things are affected. So again, toilet paper, we know this, okay? I'm not going to beat this around the bush, but we all know the toilet paper goes first. It even goes before water, okay? Whether in fact, I think water is actually more important. But over the past few years, we had issues with the deliveries of paper for certain companies because of the supply chain issues. There were some other issues with the new legislations about reusing wood, that sort of thing. But it happened. The point isn't happened, but the point is the paper is imported, or in fact the wood is imported to make the paper. So yes, toilet paper is number one of the priorities that will be cleared off the shelf. So cleaning products, again, bleaches, disinfectants, sponges, all of that is imported from abroad. Yes, again, there are some companies, cleaning companies, that make stuff here. But again, all the active ingredients, all the plastic packaging still be coming from abroad. So all of that stuff, again, will be non-existent if we're talking about, total close down of the borders, no imports coming in. Things like, again, bin bags, foils, cling films, all of that's imported. I talk about and I encourage you guys to stockpile on the foil. I generally don't say to stockpile on the bin bags and the cling film, but it is actually a good idea because in any emergency situation, we all have waste. You always have waste. So having the bin bags, it's really important. And the cling film as well. It's got far more uses than just for, wrapping up your food and putting this in the fridge. Next thing, pet food. Again, tinned and dry, all imported. Be it even a part of, say, we talk about the tin food for be it the cats or dogs. Believe this or not, but the majority of the meat, it's imported from different countries. And you might think, yes, companies here make the certain, the food is made potentially here, factories are here, but all the ingredients and including tins are imported from different countries. So guys, number 5, we're talking about the tools, clothes and miscellaneous. Pretty much everything else that's not been covered by other categories. Again, things like the batteries, the torches, the radios, the spare parts for that, spare car parts, spare bike parts, water filters, water cartridges, and many other things. So it's pretty much was probably quicker to make a video on things, what things are actually totally not reliant on the imports than to tell you what actually is imported. But the whole point of this video, guys, is to give you an idea. It is pretty much clear that 99% of our preparedness items are imported to our island. And again, the point of this video to just make you think, okay, for a second, that what you buy, we take things for granted, okay? We go to the shop, things are readily available, but it only takes one scenario, something to disrupt the supply chain. And if we're talking about the closure of the ports altogether, after a little while, and in fact, probably after a very quick while, you won't be able to get majority of those things. Just think about how quickly shops are emptying, and we're talking about, say, the water and the toilet paper in the previous scenarios. Have a look at the Spain where they had the power outages. People panicked. People ran to the shop and they stockpiled toilet paper, they stockpiled water, and they stockpiled tins. Okay, so that just tells you something. So there we are, guys. I do hope you have found this video helpful. As I said, if you're not a subscriber, maybe consider subscribing and put the little bell notification there. I will be bringing out those videos that I said, they're called a 1 week 1 prep, where we're going to be picking up one preparedness item, or in fact a group of the items but relevant to a specific preparedness, or in fact a scenario as well. And then we're going to be going into the great details, okay, and talking about what we can do and what's the best way to prepare this item or that category of items or this scenario. And as I said before, guys, I'm going to be doing this in divided into two parts. So in the beginning, we're going to be talking about it in the very basic layman terms. So if you are just started your preparedness journey, you don't want to be overwhelmed, you stick to that. And then the second part of the episode will be concentrating on things in a little bit more details, and if you're a little bit more advanced with your preparedness. So there we are, guys. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please don't forget, thumbs up, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.